Welcome to Beyond the Badge, where we take you behind the scenes of the Columbus Police Department and introduce you to the people who make it all happen. Today we have a very special guest. With more than 50 years of service, he's one of the longest serving members in CPD history. Captain Turner started as a cadet and worked his way through the ranks, now leading our Support Services Division and the SWAT team. As we celebrate Team CPD's first ever Cadet Appreciation Day, we couldn't think of a better person to talk about the impact of the cadet program, the evolution of policing, and what it takes to build a lasting career in law enforcement. I'm Brittany Santiago, and today I'm joined by Captain William Turner, one of our longest service members here at the Columbus Police Department. Not a lot of people know that Captain Turner's been here for 50 plus years, and he got his start as a cadet.
That's correct.
That's correct. So tell us, what year did you start for sure?
I started November 1st of 1973 as a cadet.
As a cadet. Okay. Now, with you starting in 1973, and we're in year 2025 now, how has the cadet program changed or expanded in your eyes?
It has changed significantly since I started as a cadet. When I started as a cadet, we did not have cadet uniforms. The uniform of the day for the cadet was the normal police uniform. So we actually wore police uniforms, the same uniforms that the officers were wearing patrolling the streets with the police patches. That was our cadet uniform. Until later on, they decided, nope, that's not good. And so then they went and had specific shirts for the cadets to wear. Mm-hmm. But at that time, I was outside of the program.
Okay. What made you even want to join?
Ever since I was a kid, I just always wanted to be a police officer. And that was just my dream job, to be a police officer. So one day I was leaving a fast food restaurant, and back then all the cars didn't have cup holders in them. So I was pulling out of the driveway, and as I made my turn from the driveway, the food started to spill, my drink started to spill, so I started grabbing everything, and when I looked up, I was going through a red light.
Oh, my God.
So you know what happened after that.
You got pulled over?
Yeah, the blue lights came on behind me. So I told the officer what had happened, took the ticket, had my court date, or if I wanted to pay it, I can go down to the police department and pay it and so forth. So I actually went down to the police department to take care of my ticket. And so I said, okay, while I'm here, I'll go ahead and apply as a cadet because I knew they had a cadet program.
Wow.
So as I went to the personnel office and talked to them at the office, they say, come back tomorrow. So I came back the next day, and they told me that I was hired. And so from that point on, I went through the onboarding process and started off as a cadet from there.
Nice. Mm-hmm. So right now we have a handful of cadets. I don't want to say the wrong number. Mm-hmm. Maybe like somewhere between 5 and 7?
Somewhere in that neighborhood.
Somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yes.
How many cadets were there when you came?
At the time I was there, I think there were only at one particular time, there were only maybe 3 cadets at a time.
And what were some of the duties that you all had to do? Right now I know some of our cadets, they get hands-on training and down at P&E, property and evidence, or they participate in the Broadway detail and things of that nature where they're getting community experience. What are some of the things that you all had to do when you started in 1973?
Back in 73, we was doing some of the same things they're doing now, because when I first started out in motor transport, which is basically one of the areas that they have a cadet in today, motor transport. I also worked the pawn shop detail. Now they have a officer that does the pawn shop detail, but at that time I was a cadet performing the pawn shop detail, going to pawn shops, getting the information about pawn items and taking that information and checking it against stolen property and so forth. So that was my job part of the time as a cadet. So those 2 jobs that I performed as a cadet, only 2 areas that I worked.
I remember you just talked about how you came down to pay a ticket, but then in that same interaction, you applied to be a cadet, and they told you to come back that next day. What was your very first day like? Do you remember that?
My very first day, it was like a sort of like a unique experience because at that time I knew of no other police officers, and so I just sort of like came in cold. Everybody and everything was new to me. But being the type of person that I am, I guess I consider myself to be a people person, just able to get along with others. I sort of blended in, didn't have any problems, any issues. So I basically just came to work, did my job, and I'm glad I did go to the program, through the program.
We're glad to have you, of course. From your first day and now more than 5 decades later, you can imagine there's been like a lot of changes. What are some of the biggest changes outside of the cars? We know y'all are not on horse and carriage anymore.
Okay. Outside of having to go to the stable and get a horse. No, it wasn't like that. Things have, over the years, things have just really changed. And I think most of the changes were for the best. I think if things had stayed the way they were 50 years ago, the police department really wouldn't be well liked because of the mindset that people have now, because the police differently, and the changes that have been made was made in the best interest of the community. And so I think, things have just changed for the better.
Okay. Now, what keeps you coming back every day? This is 50 plus years in the game. What keeps you coming back every day?
What keeps me coming back every day is I don't look at this as a job. I look at this as something that I just want to do, something that I like doing. And I didn't start it for the money, and I didn't keep doing it for the money. So I did it because it's sort of like this is what was in my blood. It's sort of like, to me, it was like what I was meant to do. Right. And so I just don't have that mentality that a lot of people have. You come to work at 8, and at 5 o'clock you're looking at your watch. Oh, it's 2 minutes to 5. I'm packing my bags, getting ready to go out the door because it's time to go. Out of all my 50 years, I just never looked at my work day that way.
Right. So, Captain Turner, you came, I want to say maybe it had to have been 2 years after some unrest here, like perhaps on the heels of a firing of 7 black police officers. Do you recall any of that?
Yes, I do recall that, because at the time that happened, some of the rioting that took place, I lived a couple of blocks away.
Okay.
And so I'll never forget one day I was over one of my friend's house, and I heard a fire truck, and so I walked about a half a block to see what the siren was about, and it was a fire truck was putting out a fire in the middle of the street. And I was looking at it from about 4 blocks away. And there was this girl going around, and she was telling all the kids, she said, "Those boys told y'all to get off the street. Those boys told y'all to get off the street." And I was looking at her like, what is she talking about? Okay? And so then I hear commotion, and I turn around behind me, and there's a fire about a block behind me that had been set in the middle of the street. And the fire truck, after they put out the fire about 4 blocks away, they turned and started to put out the fire that's about a block behind me. And then as they pull up, shots are being fired at the fire truck. So the fire truck pulls off. I'm crawling, back to my friend's house, and the fire truck pulls off, and I think one of the firemen was hit in the leg, during that incident. And so that is very, very familiar to me, that timing of the rioting and so forth. And I actually saw other incidents concerning that period of time during the rioting. So I wasn't a police officer at that time, but it was a short time after that I did become a cadet. Yeah.
Right, and you still decided to protect and serve your community. So it was like a bigger calling for you.
Oh yes, that still didn't sway me, and it was still something that I wanted to do.
Nice.
Yeah, even though during the rioting I did not participate in it at all, but even though during the rioting, I did get mistreated,
Okay.
and I wasn't doing anything, but still that didn't sway me, from still wanting to be a police officer.
So, even though you mentioned getting mistreated and, you came like on the heels of, the rioting and, some racial and civil unrest, it didn't make you walk away.
No, it didn't. And I think one reason why, and when I come down here, there were a lot of officers that were here at the time this was going on, and I can say I can see the reasoning behind some of the things that prompted the rioting and so forth. But I just kept a level head, and I think the fact that the supervisors that I had at the time when I came to the department, I did not have any issues with them. So I think that's one thing that kept me on the straight and narrow. And so things still didn't sway me.
Right. I mean, were there ever any times that you considered walking away? Like anything, like, racial unrest aside, where, did anything happen that said, okay, I'm about to quit this job?
No, nothing ever. No, I wanted to get my foot in the door, so once I got my foot in the door, there was nothing to get my foot out of that door, back out that door. So
there's a message in that.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they say they want to do something, and then when they're given the opportunity, either sometimes it's like, okay, thanks for the opportunity, but no. But you came in with a different mentality, like, I got my foot in the door, I'm going to stay here, and
a different attitude.
And a different,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It takes grit.
Yes.
Of course. So let's talk about one of the most memorable moments. Like, I know you probably have stories.
I have stories that I don't want to tell. But, there were a lot of memorable moments. Actually, when I first came down here, I was 19 years old. So I was a cadet for a year and 2 weeks. So that put me at the age of 20 when I got sworn in as a police officer. Well, to go to a club, to rent a car, to buy a gun, you had to be 21. So, but I was policing at the age of 20 because my age was waived by the chief of police. So one day I went to rent a car because I had to go to Atlanta, and when I pulled up, the guy looks at me and he said, "How old are you?" And I said, "I'm 20. He said, "You got to be 21 to rent a car." I said, "Okay." Well, in my mind, I said, "Well, if you get robbed, I'll be back." And I just got in my car and I drove away. But I would get flagged down by people all the time asking me, because at the time I did not look old enough to be a police officer. They would flag me down and ask me how old you are and whatever. I had one lady to flag me down, and she was walking down the street, and she threw up her umbrella, and she's, look at you, riding around here in that pretty car, got them pretty clothes on, can't be no more than 14 years old, and ain't doing more than a barrel of bait. Look at all the men over there drinking all that liquor on that porch. I said, "Yes, ma'am, I go there and take care of it." Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
You think that, was there any moments that you felt like, oh my God, like this is gonna cost me my job? Like anything that you may have done that said, okay, they're gonna give me the boot today?
No, actually, I wasn't that type of police officer.
Good.
So everything that I did, I did it by the book, the way it was supposed to be done. I wasn't one to be going out, trying to police, because of the uniform, just let the authority get the best of me.
Perfect. Yeah.
So I really didn't have those instances, where I thought I was going to get the boot, Yeah.
So you started as a cadet, went officer, corporal. Did y'all have corporals?
No,
at
we
the
didn't
time?
have corporals back then. I just went from a cadet to a police officer, and then from police officer to the rank of sergeant, then from sergeant to lieutenant, and from lieutenant to captain.
Captain. Now, how long have you been a captain?
And you asked me that, and
Uh-oh.
I I don't recall the year that I made a captain, but it's been a minute. I don't recall the year.
Okay. So you are one of the leaders in support services.
That's correct.
Correct.
Yes.
And do you know how long you've been in support services?
I've been in support services since February of 2019.
2019. And you're also what is the correct term for it? You're the leader of the SWAT team, commander?
SWAT team commander.
SWAT team commander.
SWAT team commander.
So tell me a little bit about your role in support services right now.
My role in support services, I am the second in charge under the Deputy Chief of Support Services, and my duties just assist him in the daily operations of support services. And we have several units under our command, such as the 911 Center, our Property and Evidence Section, Quartermaster Section, our Motor Transport Section, and our Information Desk, Information Services, which is the front desk when you first come inside the police station. And we also have the record room where the records management is for the police department takes place.
So you have a good nucleus,
yes,
of how we run.
Yes, there's a lot to be done every day. Yes,
absolutely,
yes.
And you're a busy man. But then you also have to have time to conduct trainings and call outs when the SWAT team is needed. Yes,
that is correct. Yes.
So tell us about that. How did you get over into being the SWAT team commander?
Just like a lot of other officers that come to the police department, you want to be the best you can be, and you want to be the best of. So I actually wanted to be on the SWAT team, so I went through tryouts and joined, and I was accepted. Well, I went through the tryouts and I was accepted to the SWAT team, and so I just worked my way up through the ranks. Came on as patrol officer, then I was a sergeant. And then once I became a lieutenant, there was another lieutenant. He was the SWAT commander. And then when he retired, the reins were handed over to me, and I took over from him. And so I've been the SWAT team commander ever since.
All right. So how has leading the SWAT team, how's that changed over the years for you?
Actually,
you know what? Better yet, were you on the SWAT team before?
Yes.
When was that? Tell us about that.
Well, I'd still consider myself, even though I'm the SWAT commander,
when did you
I'm
join?
still on the SWAT team.
You're absolutely right. Let me rephrase it.
But I was an operator when I first started.
Okay.
Yeah, I was an operator. I was one of the main entry people when I first started. And so up until the point that I became the SWAT commander and started supervising the call-outs and the missions and so forth, I was part of the entry team.
Nice. And is there an interesting story from SWAT that you remember that you can share?
No, to be honest with you, none of the stories is from the missions that we have to perform that I consider to be interesting, because they have always been the point of danger in all of them. So I'm just happy that in my career, we've always had successful missions.
And when you say successful missions, that means that everyone makes it home to their families, or for the most part?
Yeah. For the most part, what I consider to be a successful mission is when we can go out and we can perform that mission and nobody gets injured, nobody gets hurt. And that goes for the police officer, it goes for the hostage, if there's a hostage-taking situation. It goes for any other citizens that are in the immediate area, and it also goes for the suspect. If we can resolve that situation without injuring the suspect or without the suspect, as I say, being injured, we consider that to be successful. Now, in all situations, the suspect dictates the outcome of that situation.
Right.
So if we can talk him out and he responds to our negotiations or our demands to surrender and so forth, then that's basically what we're looking for. Mm-hmm. We've only had one incident that I know of to where the individual basically, no matter how we negotiated or how we talked, he did not surrender. He did not give up, and it had a tragic ending to it. But all the years, we only just had that one incident. But we've always, other than that, we've just always been successful in our missions.
Good. So what lessons do you try to impart on officers, like if they're trying to, advance to higher ranks or even join the SWAT team? Like what lessons do you try to impart on them?
Some of the things that I tell them, and I've always, at one time I was in training division, and even after training division, even when I was a shift commander or a shift supervisor or sergeant, I try to tell everyone to not forget why you have the uniform on. Because a lot of times you put that uniform on because you may have to deal with life at its lowest point. People at their worst behavior. So you can't let that surprise you when you meet that doing your duties. Mm-hmm. So you have to always stay professional. Don't take what people say and what they do personal. You just do what the community expects you to do in a professional manner, and just do it as within the law and within the policies of the police department and the city, and you won't have a problem. It's those times when you let your guard down and you let somebody else's action causes you to overreact. It's when you really run into your problem. So you just have to remember when you put that uniform on, it's not like you're going to go and work in an ice cream shop. You're gonna have your moments and you're gonna have your days, and you can't let that catch you by surprise.
Right. So we also talked at the beginning of the show about the Cadet Appreciation Day, the department's first ever Cadet Appreciation Day. And we're expected to have like the mayor, some council members of that nature to join us. Tell us again why this program is so important to the department.
I think this program is important to the department because it gives the department a period of time to where they can look at the performance, the professionalism, and the mannerisms of the cadets that we hire. It also gives the cadets an opportunity to see from the inside how the department operates. And that way, they have a better understanding of what's going on, and we have a better understanding of them, when they get sworn in and so forth. To me, it's a win-win situation for both.
Gotcha. So if you could go back and tell young William Bill Turner, it's hard not to call you Bill Turner, the first day as a cadet, if you could go back and give that young William Turner some advice, what would that be?
I think that advice would be, if I can go back, I don't think I can really tell him anything that he should have done differently. I think I'll tell him, and I think I'll just not tell him, I'll just thank him for doing things the way that I did do them and performing my duties the way that I did perform them, because I have nothing to look back on that I'm ashamed of. I've always told other people that if I ever had to arrest someone or deal with somebody, I don't want to have to meet that person in a supermarket or a store and I see them and have to turn and go down another aisle because I know I mistreated them. So I don't have to do that. I don't have to hide my face or be ashamed of anything that I've done, And so I would just thank myself, not bragging, or having a big head, but I don't think there's anything that I've done that I would change.
And that's real. I think that is one thing that I do appreciate about you as a young civilian coming here. You've been the same since day one that I stepped into this building to today. So I do appreciate that. So that's all I really have for you right now. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I know that some future cadets who may want to join the department at some point will listen to this and gain a lot from your experience, your demeanor, your composure. composure, your years here, and your experience. So I do appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Do you have any next steps, any next plans? I know you have more to accomplish.
Right now, I think I've accomplished, most of what I'm going to accomplish. But before I go, I would like to just say that if there are any future cadets or any cadets, that's listening, to this podcast, I would just like to tell them that don't let peer pressure make you do something that's not appropriate, or it's not professional. Don't let the actions of other people cause you to get in trouble. Yes. When you basically come to work, your plan is to come to work and do things the right way, the way that they're supposed to be done. So don't get caught up in those situations where someone may not have that intention and they have you in the middle of it. Just stay out of the middle of it. Do your best to avoid it and see something, say something.
And that's some real advice. It's so easy to get caught up in some of the nonsense that goes on some days. And, that's just really, that's real. So, Captain Turner, thank you again. I appreciate you. Yeah. And you are like the glue that keeps Team CPD together.
And I would like everybody to know before I go, even though I said those things about, staying on the straight path and so forth, the police department as a whole and policing as a whole, in America is a good. Yeah. The law enforcement, the officers of the police department are professionals and they do their jobs and they do things, the way that they're supposed to do. But just every once in a while, and there's no way to avoid it, every once in a while you're going to have that one person, to just be that rotten apple in the barrel.
Yeah.
So, but most of all, we have a professional department.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the vast majority of the police department is what the community expects them to be.
Right. And we do get one bad apple every now and then, but from what I've experienced, I know that there are a lot of good officers here who really do love their job, and they come to work every day because they really do believe in helping people.
And we do deal with them. If we ever have something that comes up, those people are dealt with. It's not accepted. Yeah.
Absolutely. Coming up next on Beyond the Badge, Women's History Month meets CPD leadership. We're sitting down with our two assistant chiefs to talk about breaking barriers, leading the way, and the evolution of women in law enforcement. From the challenges they face to the progress we've made, this is an episode you don't want to miss.